Universes beyond. Commander, you must have hit your head pretty hard there, buddy. Come on, let's go draft some Urza's Legacy.
Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank, the fat man with the fat plan, hoping that you guys are having a great day. And in today's video, I'd like to sit back in my kind of squeaky chair, relax, and have a little conversation with all of you guys about a viewer request. You see, in my previous video, I believe, I had mentioned how sometimes sealed product or singles kept for the long term don't always make it to the intended destination. Sometimes sealed product is cracked open before they were initially meant to. Sometimes things can be lost or stolen or destroyed. And so one of the Discord users, shameless plug here, you should join the Discord and come chat with us, asked if there were steps that dedicated and serious collectors and investors can take in the long term to help safeguard their investments and their collection. And yes, there are some basic tips that I'd recommend that just about everyone take into consideration when it comes to your long-term cardboard crack addiction. Just as a forewarning, obviously, this is not a comprehensive list. This is what I feel is just the basics. There are going to be loads of different things that you should take into account for your situation and your needs. This is just really me going over really what I think are just the basics that you should keep in mind, especially if you are planning on holding on to cardboard crack for more than, I don't know, 6 months, probably. And these aren't in any particular order. Just so you guys are aware, this is just some things that at the very least, I try to keep to it. So the first things first, don't store your cards in wet environments or in scorching heat. Heat and moisture can warp cards. This is very well known. So you want to try and keep them in cool, dry environments. You want to avoid temperature fluctuations, and you will want to avoid keeping them in places where moisture and mold can accumulate. So places like the basement or next to a fridge or anything like that are generally not a good place to store your cards. A good bit of advice is to not store them in places like a garage. Yes, I'm storing my cards in a garage, but this is an insulated garage, so I'm fairly confident in it. Most garages are not going to have insulation or temperature controls or anything that I would consider good for cards long term, most of the time. For sealed product, something you want to keep in mind is, I know it's tempting because I've done this before, but it's very important that you don't just store sealed product on the floor or stack it on top of one another on a floor. It's just not a good idea. If you must stack your sealed cases on the floor, don't stack too many and try not to do it for too long, okay? As for loose products, like cards and such, you're going to want a shelving and boxing system. I use the BCW 800 count boxes and their cardboard houses to keep and organize my collection and my bulk and my inventory. It's very efficient, I find, to just keep things organized and sorted by set alphabetically in my situation. As for where you should keep your sealed product, obviously on a shelf is good, but if you want a bit of extra protection, then I find that totes, plastic totes, large ones that are able to accommodate your sealed collection are always a nice extra layer of security. They help provide from just a bit more protection from moisture, from any pests that might get into wherever you might be keeping your sealed product. Actually, fun story, a little bit of a side tangent. I remember now a story from TG, the 4chan board, of some guy who had squirreled away thousands of Yu-Gi-Oh cards in a storage unit, and rats had gotten into it and just chewed up all of his cards. I remember that from years ago. But anyway, yeah, you want to, any extra layer of security you can provide, like a tote, keeping it off the floor on a shelf, all good there. For your loose cards, I cannot stress enough the value of acid-free sleeves, top loaders, especially for foil cards, especially for Magic the Gathering. If you want to hold on to foil cards for long term, you absolutely do not want to just keep it loose on a stack with some other foil cards because they will curl. Yes, if kept in the proper environments, that curling will take longer, But the best way to avoid curling your cards and the best way to fix curls is to just not let it happen. Store them in sleeves, again, acid-free, and with top loaders. In a binder, obviously, if you're going to get them that much, but those, I think, are the safe bets. Keeping your collection very well organized is obviously another way to... Loud truck. Keeping your collection well organized, like I said, is a very easy and efficient way to just keep track of everything. It's hard for things to get lost if you have a really good idea of where everything is supposed to be. You know, if you just have a box or a few boxes where you throw all your stuff and you don't have it organized in any real way, besides monster cards go here or attack reaction cards go here or whatever, you're not going to have a good idea. There are plenty of apps that have been released in the last few years that do a really good job of tracking the value of your collection, and there are plenty of ways physically to keep your collection well organized. So knowing what you have, how much it's worth, and where it is are always good. Another thing you can really keep in mind when it comes to protecting your items long-term is a safe. Obviously, a safe is an expensive thing. A good safe is an expensive item. They're not just going to... Like a lockbox, that can do the trick, you know, especially if you want to keep it, make it hard for someone to just yoink it. But... a lot of loud cars tonight. But if you're trying to protect from not just thieves, but like things like fire or flooding, a good safe that is resistant to such events is going to be well worth the investment, especially if you're planning on keeping high-end sealed product for the long term. There's a lot of people who get caught up in just having the high-end sealed product, the expensive vintage Magic and Pokemon, but don't properly store it. They throw it in a closet or whatever. And don't get me wrong, that can work, that can be fine. But if that's the only, just putting it away in a corner is your only means of securing it, then let's just say that I personally wouldn't advise that. There are cases, acrylic cases, designed for pretty much every TCG has a custom molded acrylic case. So if you're just looking to keep a handful of boxes for the long term and they're particularly expensive, an acrylic case can go a long way to just safeguarding that as well. So there's keeping it off the floor, just a quick recount. You can keep it off the floor, keep it in an acrylic case or on a shelf or in a tote or in a safe for your sealed product. For your signals, I'd recommend sleeving them if they're valuable enough, or at the very least, keeping them very well organized. And honestly, those are the things that you should be keeping in mind. Again, there are going to be various extra steps you can take to safeguard what you find valuable. You know, you can have extra locks or camera systems and such, but that's going to come down to your particular needs and your particular budget. Obviously, someone who is just collecting and investing out of his one-bedroom apartment is going to have different needs than someone who has a full-on storefront. You know, if you're working out of an apartment, chances are you probably don't want or can afford fancy safe, fancy cameras to keep 24 surveillance or whatever. But if you have a store, not only can you realistically need to afford those things, you're going to need to have them just to safeguard yourself, the insurances, and all that jazz. Some other things to keep in mind. Sunlight can damage cards. It can damage sealed product. Sunlight, pet hair. Pets are a big thing. I would not recommend having any loose cards at all if you have a cat or a dog that sheds. This comes up fairly often, but cats, dogs, anything that sheds fur is going to contaminate your cards. You can think that you do the greatest job in the world of grooming and cleaning up after your animal, but their hair is going to get in those cards. Smoking. Don't smoke in the same space that you store your cardboard. That should be common sense, but in my experience, it's not. So we've covered how to do it. We've covered things to avoid. Any other recommendations I have? Honestly, no. Like I said, the most basic thing you can do is just keep it in a good environment, keep it well organized, and try to do your best to just be mindful of it, honestly. Yes, I know that I've said the best way you can keep an investment safe is to just forget about it, but just being mindful of where everything is supposed to be is always the best thing you can do. If something is out of place or maybe a bit more stacked than it should be. Consider rearranging. Rearranging is always going to happen when you're in this business. You're going to be moving things around all the time, whether from one shelf to another or from one kind of organizational system to another. Just trust me, once you're doing this for more than like 2 or 3 years, you're going to be moving things around a lot. In fact, this shelf here, up until very recently, was dedicated almost entirely to Force of Will. But now, because of how much extra stuff I've been adding to the inventory, the Force of Will stuff has been bleeding over into the Yu-Gi-Oh section, and the Yu-Gi-Oh section has been bleeding over into the Magic the Gathering section, which was this shelf over here. So now it's all starting to bleed together in this area, and I have to reorganize it all again so that Magic and Force of Will and Yu-Gi-Oh are all separate, and that's not even accounting for the Flesh and Blood and miscellaneous stuff. So even for me, reorganizing and rearranging stuff just kind of has to happen all the time. And knowing where everything is and where it's supposed to be is going to help with that, obviously. But that's really it. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, and I hope that you guys learned something. If you did, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. Yes, subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you learned something new or if you knew everything that I talked about and you think I'm silly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out the Discord. Check out the Patreon. See you guys next time. Ciao.